The sky over Newport Harbor darkened as rain pelted the weathered wooden planks of Harrison Pier, making them slick with a treacherous sheen. Morgan Zane tightened her grip on her umbrella while mentally cursing her decision to walk along the waterfront during a storm. She had needed the space to think, to escape the suffocating boardroom where she'd spent the last 14 hours negotiating the biggest acquisition of her career. The heel of her designer pump hit a slippery patch. In an instant, her world tilted sideways. The umbrella flew from her hand as she felt herself careening toward the churning water 20 feet below. A scream tore from her throat, her arms flailing wildly for something, anything to grab onto. Strong hands seized her waist, yanking her backward with such force that they both tumbled onto the pier. Morgan landed on top of a solid chest, the stranger's arms still wrapped protectively around her. For several seconds they lay there, rain pounding down on them, both breathing heavily from the near disaster. "Are you okay?" A deep voice finally asked, concern evident in every syllable. Morgan rolled off him and sat up, her heart still hammering against her ribs. "Yes, I think so." "You saved my life." The man sat up beside her, pushing wet hair from his forehead. "Those boards get slippery as ice during a storm. The city's supposed to maintain them, but—" He shrugged, then extended his hand. "I'm Vincent Drake, Morgan Zane," she replied automatically, taking his hand. His grip was firm, his palm calloused. When lightning flashed, she caught her first clear glimpse of her rescuer, broad-shouldered, with a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, kind eyes, and rain-soaked clothes that had seen better days. "Dad, Dad," a small voice called out. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, came running toward them, sheltered under a too large raincoat. "Did you see that? You saved her like a superhero," Vincent smiled warmly at the child. "Lily, careful on these boards, sweetheart." He turned to Morgan. "My daughter. We were just finishing our weekend fishing. Not the best weather, but it's our tradition." Morgan smiled at the little girl, whose dark hair was pulled into slightly lopsided pigtails. "Your dad really is a superhero." Vincent helped Morgan to her feet. Her designer suit was soaked through, clinging uncomfortably to her skin. Her phone started ringing in her pocket, and when she pulled it out, water dripped from the screen. "That doesn't look good," Vincent commented. Morgan sighed, knowing the device was likely ruined. "Just what I needed today." "Look, our car is right in the lot. Let me give you a ride home. It's the least I can do after tackling you to the ground." Morgan hesitated, eyeing the dilapidated pickup truck he pointed toward. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't dream of getting into a stranger's vehicle, but there was something trustworthy about this man and his daughter. Plus, she was miles from her penthouse, and her driver wasn't due to pick her up for another hour. "That's really kind of you," she accepted. The inside of Vincent's truck was clean but clearly well used. Fishing gear filled the truck bed, and children's books were stacked on the back seat alongside a small pink backpack decorated with unicorns. Lily climbed into her booster seat while Vincent opened the passenger door for Morgan. "Sorry about the seats," he said, quickly gathering a few coloring books from the front. "We weren't expecting company." "It's perfectly fine," Morgan assured him, touched by his embarrassment. "I'm just grateful for the ride." As they drove, Lily chatted animatedly from the back seat about their fishing trip, how many fish they caught too, and how her dad let her throw the little ones back. Vincent occasionally glanced at her in the rearview mirror with unmistakable adoration. "Where to?" he asked Morgan. She hesitated before giving him the address of her building in the affluent Harbor Heights neighborhood. She noticed his eyebrows raise slightly, but he made no comment. "So what brings a woman in a business suit to the pier during a storm?" Vincent asked conversationally. "I needed to clear my head," Morgan admitted. "Work has been intense lately." "What do you do?" Morgan paused. This was always the moment that changed how people saw her. "I work in corporate acquisitions," she said vaguely. Vincent nodded. "Sounds important." "I build things myself, carpentry mostly. Custom furniture, renovations, whatever pays the bills." "Daddy makes the most beautiful tables," Lily piped up proudly. "He made my princess bed too, is that right?" Morgan turned to smile at the little girl. "Yeah, it has a canopy and everything." "Daddy says every girl deserves to feel like a princess, even if we can't afford a castle," Vincent's ears reddened. Lily, remember what we talked about. Some thoughts are just for us. Morgan's heart twinged at the gentle correction. She could tell Vincent was struggling financially but maintaining his dignity in front of his daughter. They arrived at Morgan's luxury high-rise, and Vincent let out a low whistle. Nice place. Thank you again for the ride, Morgan said, suddenly feeling self-conscious about the stark contrast between their lives. And for saving me, I don't know how to repay you, Vincent waved her off. No need, anyone would have done the same. I disagree, Morgan said softly. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, one of the plain ones that didn't list her title. If you ever need anything, furniture commissioned or whatever, please call me. Vincent took the card, glancing at it briefly before tucking it into his shirt pocket. Take care, Morgan. Maybe stay off piers during rainstorms, she laughed. I'll try. Morgan waved to Lily before heading into her building, turning once to see the old pickup truck pull away. The next morning, Morgan's assistant placed a new phone on her desk. All your data has been transferred, Miss Zane. Your 9 a.m. with the board is in 10 minutes. Morgan nodded distractedly. She'd slept poorly, her dreams filled with the sensation of falling and strong arms catching her. She couldn't stop thinking about Vincent and his daughter. The genuine love between them, the simple joy they took in their fishing tradition despite having so little. She pulled up her browser and searched Vincent Drake Carpentry. A modest website appeared, showcasing beautiful handcrafted furniture. The pieces were stunning, simple yet elegant, with attention to detail that spoke of real craftsmanship. She clicked through the gallery, impressed by the quality of work. The bottom of the page had a note. Custom orders currently on hold due to workshop relocation. Before she could explore further, her assistant knocked. The board is ready, Miss Zane. Morgan spent the day navigating the complex final negotiations of Zane Enterprises' acquisition of Meridian Technologies. As CEO, she'd spent 3 years working toward this merger, and today they'd finally signed the papers. Her team expected celebration, but Morgan found herself distracted, her thoughts repeatedly drifting to the father and daughter from the pier. That evening, after declining invitations to the company celebration, Morgan found herself driving toward the address listed on Vincent's website. She told herself it was just curiosity, or perhaps gratitude, that motivated her. The neighborhood was modest, not run down, but certainly working class. She spotted Vincent's truck outside a small bungalow with a detached garage that had been converted into a workshop. Light spilled from its windows, and as she approached, she heard the sound of sanding. Morgan hesitated at the open door. Vincent stood at a workbench, carefully shaping a piece of cherry wood, completely absorbed in his task. Sawdust covered his clothes, and a pencil was tucked behind his ear. Without the rain and adrenaline of their first meeting, she had a chance to really look at him. He was handsome in an unpretentious way, with the confident movements of someone who knew their craft. She knocked lightly on the doorframe. Vincent looked up, surprise crossing his features. Morgan, he set down his tools. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, she assured him quickly. I saw your website. Your work is beautiful. He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable with the praise. Thanks, it's just something I love doing. Where's Lily? At her grandmother's. My ex-wife's mother. She takes her Tuesday nights so I can get some work done. He gestured to the space around them. This is temporary. My previous workshop space got sold to developers. I'm making do with the garage until I can find something more suitable. Morgan nodded, suddenly feeling like an intruder. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. I wanted to thank you properly for yesterday. Would you let me buy you dinner? As a thank you, Vincent looked down at his dust-covered clothes. I'm not exactly dressed for dinner. I don't mind. There's a great diner just down the street, unless you'd rather not. Vincent studied her for a moment, curiosity evident in his expression. Let me clean up a bit. Over burgers at Riley's diner, they talked more freely. Vincent told her about starting his carpentry business after being laid off from a construction company 5 years ago, right around the time Lily was born. My wife couldn't handle the financial insecurity, he explained without bitterness. We split when Lily was 2. She's remarried now, lives in Seattle, sees Lily during school breaks. That must be hard, Morgan said. Vincent shrugged. It's been the three of us for so long, me, Lily, and uncertainty, we make it work. He took a sip of his coffee. What about you, husband, kids? Morgan shook her head. No time, honestly. My work keeps me busy. Corporate acquisitions, Vincent recalled, must be interesting. Morgan hesitated. Most men she dated either felt intimidated by her success or saw her as a trophy. She rarely discussed her work outside the office. But Vincent seemed genuinely interested. It is, she admitted. I like the strategy of it, identifying companies with potential, finding ways to integrate them into a larger structure while preserving what makes them special. Vincent nodded thoughtfully. Like finding the right piece of wood for a project. Some pieces look ordinary until you bring out their grain with the right finish. Morgan smiled, surprised by the apt analogy. Exactly. They talked for hours, long after their plates were cleared. Vincent told her about his dreams for his business, a proper workshop, maybe employees someday, creating furniture that would become family heirlooms. Morgan found herself opening up about growing up with parents who valued achievement above all else, how she'd climbed the corporate ladder by sheer determination. She carefully avoided mentioning that she was actually the CEO of Zane Enterprises, one of the largest investment firms on the East Coast. It felt good to just be Morgan, not Miss Zane, who struck fear in boardrooms. When they finally left the diner, the night air had turned cool. Vincent walked her to her car. This was nice, he said, hands in his pockets. A lot nicer than I expected. What did you expect? Morgan asked, genuinely curious. I don't know. You live in Harbor Heights, wear clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I figured you were just being polite. I don't do pity dinners, Morgan assured him. I enjoyed talking with you. Something shifted in his expression. Would you like to do it again sometime, maybe with Lily? She's been asking about the pretty lady Dad saved. Morgan felt warmth spread through her chest. I'd like that very much. That Saturday, they met at Westside Park. Morgan arrived with a kite she'd bought for Lily, uncertain if it was appropriate, but remembering how much she'd loved flying kites as a child. Lily's face lit up at the gift. Dad, look, can we fly it now? The three of them spent the afternoon in the autumn sunshine, taking turns with the kite, laughing as it dipped and soared in the wind. Morgan couldn't remember the last time she'd spent an afternoon doing something so simple and joyful. Later, as Lily played on the swings, Vincent and Morgan sat on a nearby bench. She's wonderful, Morgan said, watching the little girl pump her legs enthusiastically. She's my whole world, Vincent replied, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Everything I do is for her. That's beautiful, Morgan said sincerely. Not everyone is lucky enough to be so loved. Vincent turned to study her. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Morgan smiled sadly. My parents loved me in their way. They provided for me, gave me every advantage. But they were always focused on success, achievement. There wasn't much room for just being a kid. Vincent's hand covered hers briefly. Well, Lily and I are experts at being kids. You're welcome to practice with us anytime. Over the next few weeks, Morgan found herself spending more and more time with Vincent and Lily. They went apple picking, visited a small local museum, and spent an evening making pizza from scratch in Vincent's modest kitchen. Each time, Morgan felt another layer of corporate armor fall away. She helped Lily with her first-grade math homework. Vincent taught Morgan how to sand wood properly in his workshop. For the first time in years, Morgan began leaving the office at reasonable hours, declining weekend meetings. Her assistant noticed the change. You seem different lately, Miss Zane. More relaxed, Morgan just smiled. She hadn't told anyone at work about Vincent. It felt too new, too precious to expose to the harsh fluorescent lights of her corporate world. Vincent, for his part, never asked about her work beyond general questions. He seemed content to know her as she presented herself, just Morgan, a woman who enjoyed spending time with him and his daughter. One evening, after they'd put Lily to bed following a movie night at Vincent's house, they sat on his small back porch, sharing a bottle of wine. I have a confession, Vincent said, looking slightly embarrassed. I Googled you after we met. Morgan's heart sank. Oh, yeah, wanted to make sure you weren't some kind of serial killer before I let you around Lily, he joked, but his expression turned serious. You left out some details about your job. Morgan took a deep breath. Yes, I did, CEO of Zane Enterprises. That's impressive. His tone was unreadable. Does it change things? She asked quietly. Vincent considered this. Should it? Most people treat me differently when they know. I'm not most people, Vincent said simply. And I like the Morgan who flies kites and makes terrible pizza crust, the one who listens to my daughter's endless stories about school with genuine interest. That's the real you, isn't it? Morgan felt tears prick at her eyes. Yes. That's who I want to be, at least. Sometimes I forget, with all the meetings and mergers and quarterly reports. Vincent reached for her hand. Well, I'm happy to remind you. When he kissed her, gentle and unhurried under the porch light, Morgan felt like she was falling again, but this time, she wasn't afraid. As their relationship deepened, real-world complications began to surface. Morgan's work schedule still demanded long hours sometimes. Vincent struggled to find affordable workshop space as his lease on a temporary location neared its end. Lily went through a brief phase of testing boundaries with Morgan, uncertain about this new adult in their lives. One particularly difficult evening, after Morgan had missed Lily's school play due to an emergency board meeting, she arrived at Vincent's house to find him tense and distracted. I'm so sorry about the play, she said immediately. Is Lily very upset? She'll be okay, Vincent assured her, but his expression remained troubled. It's not just the play. I lost out on the workshop space I was hoping for. Got outbid. Morgan winced. She knew how much he'd been counting on that location. I'm sorry, Vince. Is there anything I can do? He gave her a look she couldn't quite interpret. You know, sometimes I wonder what we're doing here, Morgan. What do you mean? He gestured vaguely between them. Us. You run a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm a single dad struggling to keep my small business afloat. Our worlds are so different. That doesn't matter to me, Morgan insisted. Maybe it should, Vincent said quietly. I can't give you the kind of life you're used to. I can barely afford to take you to dinner somewhere nice. Morgan felt a flare of irritation. Have I ever complained about that? Have I ever made you feel like you need to impress me with expensive things? No, he admitted. But that's not the point. The point is I need to be realistic about what I can offer in this relationship. And what about what I need? Morgan asked, her voice rising slightly. Did it ever occur to you that maybe what I need isn't another acquisition or merger or luxury vacation? Maybe what I need is exactly what you and Lily have given me, a place where I can just be Morgan, not CEO Zane. Vincent ran a hand through his hair. And what happens when the novelty wears off? When you get tired of movie nights on my old couch and want to go back to charity galas and business dinners? That's not fair, Morgan said, hurt evident in her voice. You're making assumptions about me based on my bank account, not who I actually am. The argument ended unresolved, both of them too stubborn to give ground. Morgan drove home that night with tears blurring her vision, wondering if Vincent was right. Were their differences too great to overcome? The next day, buried in work she couldn't focus on, Morgan received a call from her assistant. Miss Zane, there's a Lily Drake here to see you. She says it's an emergency. Morgan froze. Send her in immediately. Lily burst into the office, her school backpack still on, clearly having come directly from class. Her grandmother, a worried-looking older woman, followed close behind. Lily, what's wrong? Is your dad okay? Morgan rushed around her desk. Dad's fine, Lily said, her small face serious. But he's being stupid. Despite her concern, Morgan had to suppress a smile. What do you mean? He's sad because he thinks you're going to leave us because you're rich and important and he's not, Lily explained with the brutal honesty of a 6-year-old. But that's dumb because you don't care about that stuff. You care about us. Morgan knelt to Lily's level. You're absolutely right. Lily's grandmother stepped forward. I'm sorry about this, Miss Zane. When I picked her up from school, she insisted we come see you. She can be very determined. Like her father, Morgan said with a small smile. It's perfectly fine, Mrs. Drake. Thank you for bringing her. After reassuring Lily and sending her home with her grandmother, Morgan made a decision. She canceled her remaining meetings and drove to Vincent's workshop. He looked up from his work, surprise evident on his face. Morgan, what are you doing here? Your daughter paid me a visit today, Morgan said, walking toward him. She thinks you're being, and I quote, stupid. Vincent groaned. She didn't. She did, and she's right. Morgan stopped in front of him. Vincent, I don't care about the differences in our financial situations. I care about you, about Lily, about the way I feel when I'm with you both. Vincent set down his tools. I care about you too, that's why I'm worried. I don't want you to wake up one day and regret choosing this life. This life is exactly what I want, Morgan insisted, and I need you to believe me when I say that. Vincent studied her face. I want to. Then let me prove it. Morgan took a deep breath. I have a proposition for you. 2 months later, Vincent stood in the center of his new workshop, a renovated warehouse space that Morgan had helped him secure. Not by simply writing a check, which he would have refused, but by connecting him with a property developer who needed custom furniture for a new apartment complex. The deal included workshop space and a substantial first commission. Morgan watched him from the doorway as he walked through the space, running his hands along the walls, examining the natural light from the skylights. Do you like it? She asked. Vincent turned to her, his eyes bright. It's perfect, better than I ever imagined. And you're okay with how we made it happen? Morgan asked, still slightly concerned that his pride might be hurt. You didn't give me a handout, Vincent said firmly. You connected me with an opportunity that I earned through my own work. There's a big difference. He crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. Thank you for understanding that. Morgan rested her head against his chest. Thank you for catching me that day on the pier. Best reflex decision I ever made, Vincent murmured into her hair. That evening, they celebrated with Lily at Vincent's house, which now felt like a second home to Morgan. After Lily went to bed, Vincent led Morgan to the porch where they'd shared their first kiss. I have something for you, he said, suddenly looking nervous. He handed her a small wooden box, beautifully crafted from cherry wood with an inlaid pattern on the lid. Morgan opened it carefully. Inside, nestled on a cushion of velvet, was a ring not a traditional diamond, but a band of polished wood with a small, perfectly set sapphire. I made it, Vincent said quietly. The wood is from the first project I completed in the new workshop. Morgan looked up at him, speechless. I know it's not what most women in your position would expect, he continued, but I wanted you to have something that represented us where we've been and where we're going. If you want something more traditional, it's perfect, Morgan interrupted, tears filling her eyes. Absolutely perfect. Vincent took the ring from the box and knelt before her. Morgan Zane, you nearly slipped off a pier and into my life. Every day since then has been better than the last. Will you marry me? Yes, she whispered, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. Yes, I will. 1 year later, they were married on that same pier, now renovated and made safe through a community improvement project funded by the Vincent Drake Foundation, a non-profit they'd established to support small businesses and vocational training. Lily, serving as flower girl, practically danced down the aisle, beaming with pride. Vincent stood waiting, handsome in a suit he actually owned now, thanks to the success of his expanding business. And Morgan, who had restructured her role at Zane Enterprises to allow for a better work-life balance, walked toward her future with absolute certainty. In her vows, Morgan spoke of falling both literally off the pier and metaphorically in love. Vincent promised to always be there to catch her. Their reception was held in Vincent's workshop, transformed for the evening into an elegant space filled with flowers and twinkling lights. Tables he had crafted himself held their family and friends, corporate executives mingling with carpenters, Lily's school friends running between the tables. As they shared their first dance, Morgan whispered in Vincent's ear, "Any regrets about catching a falling CEO?" Vincent pulled back to look into her eyes, his own filled with love. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." 5 years later, Morgan sat on the back porch of their house, a comfortable home they'd renovated together, not too far from Vincent's now thriving workshop. Lily, now 11, and showing impressive talent for both business and woodworking, was helping her 3-year-old brother Noah build a small birdhouse at a child-sized workbench Vincent had made. Morgan's hand rested on her slightly rounded belly, where their third child was growing. Vincent emerged from the house with glasses of lemonade for everyone, pausing to drop a kiss on Morgan's head. "How are my girls doing?" he asked, his hand joining hers over their unborn daughter. Perfect, Morgan replied, looking at their family with contentment. Absolutely perfect. As the evening sun cast golden light across their yard, Morgan thought about that rainy day on the pier, how close she had come to missing all of this. One slip, one fall, and one pair of strong hands had changed everything. Sometimes, she realized, falling was the best thing that could happen to a person.